rely on marketing more than ever to connect with audiences. One podcast aims to make sense of it all. This is Movies and Marketing.
Next Saturday night, we're sending you back to the future.
Go ahead, make my day.
How about you crazy Dutch bastard? What we've got here is failure to communicate.
Take a look around. You're at the threshold of hell.
We might as well have a good time.
I am an FBI agent.
Hey, this is Shad.
And this is Patrick.
And on today's episode, we're talking about the Oscars. Not this year's Oscars because, who cares about that? And we have a firm belief that you can't really reward the Oscars in the year that the movies happen, or the previous year, whatever. History takes a little bit of time to set in. So we're going back to 1999. 20 years to the 1999 Oscars, which awarded the movies released in 1998. And we're going to do a little bit of revisions. We're going to see who should have really won that year. Because the Oscars, Patrick, they just never really seem to get it right in the moment. You always look back and you say, well, that seems like an odd choice, or why did that movie win, or what even is that movie,
Yeah, I will be totally honest. The Oscars is that awards program that eludes me because I just don't really understand how they pick their movies because they're clearly not the favorites of the year, right? Not always, anyway.
Yeah. Sometimes it kind of works. I think what the Oscars want to be is like what the Super Bowl is. This like record of this was the best of the year. This was how things worked out. This like permanent record that shows you of the winners of each year. Things get muddled by these like narratives and this award politicking and marketing. And so they end up being something different. You look back on them and you're like, well, that wasn't even close to the best movie of the year. That was way off. Today, we're taking the opportunity to set the record right and put things maybe the way they should be.
I think it's also important to note that what you consider the best and what I consider the best or what anyone considers the best movie, it's relative to that person, so it's personal. You know what I mean?
I agree with that. It's all subjective, but I will say with some space between it, with 20 years, you can look back and say, well, these are the movies that still hold up and have a place in history, and these are the movies that have fallen away in time as being less important.
If only the Oscars could do that.
They're like, and this year on the Oscars, we're awarding the movies from 1999. So we'll dive in. We're going to go through the 6 major categories. And the first thing we're going to do is we'll look at the nominees and the winners. The movies released in 1998, the actual awards were given out in 1999. And just say, did they get it right? Would you change who won, and if so, why? So let's do that right now.
We accept the reality with which we're presented.
So the actor in a supporting role, the nominees were James Coburn, Affliction, Robert Duvall, A Civil Action, Ed Harris, The Truman Show, Jeffrey Rush, Shakespeare in Love, and Billy Bob Thornton, A Simple Plan. And the winner that year was James Coburn, Affliction.
Okay, decent list. I think I've seen almost all these movies. Shakespeare in Love I've never actually seen, though I, know of it. Has a reputation mostly because of the Oscars. I don't have a problem with the winner. My personal preference there is Billy Bob Thornton in A Simple Plan, which is a movie that I think is a really, really good movie that not a lot of people have seen. Directed by Sam Raimi, who did the Evil Dead movies and the Spider-Man movies. And this is peak Billy Bob Thornton. He was nominated for an Oscar for Sling Blade, and then I think he got this nomination the next year, and it was like, wow, this guy's gonna be a big star. He's gonna be nominated every year. And this might have been it. This might have been the last time he ever got an Oscar nomination. And I think he should have won it.
Yeah, I agree with you on this, except for the Billy Bob Thornton winning thing, which you might say, what are you agreeing with me then for? I'd probably give it to Ed Harris. The part I do agree on, though, is the argument you mentioned, which is a solid problem with the Oscars and maybe any awards program, really. the idea of a potential recipient will have a lot of other opportunities to win. So let's give it to so-and-so. That part drives me a little crazy.
Yeah, it's common narrative. How these Oscars play out is like, oh, that person's, fairly young. Let them get their first couple nominations before they win. And then usually what ends up happening is 30 years pass, they don't actually win anything. So then they give them an award for a movie that most people don't think they really deserve it for. Yeah. It's like Al Pacino winning for Scent of a Woman as opposed to like one of the Godfather movies. Something like that, or Denzel Washington winning for Training Day as opposed to like Malcolm X or something where it's just, you didn't give them the Oscar when they deserved it, so then you make up for it later. But yeah, there's this thing that happens. They're going to have tons of nominations. Don't worry, they'll have 100 chances to win. And it doesn't quite always work out that way. I will say, the Ed Harris pick is a good one. I wonder if when these awards actually happened, he wasn't the favorite. Because he's really good in that movie.
Yeah, he definitely deserved it.
He's definitely an actor I think everybody kind of respects.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next category is actress in a supporting role. And the nominees were Judi Dench, Shakespeare in Love, Kathy Bates, Primary Colors, Brenda Blethyn, Little Voice, Rachel Griffiths, Hillary and Jackie, and Lynn Redgrave, Gods and Monsters. And the winner was Judi Dench, Shakespeare in Love. See how I'm reading it like I'm announcing them at the Oscars?
Yeah, I got very excited for a second. Other than one thing.
What?
I've never seen any of these movies, so this category doesn't mean a super lot to me. Can't argue with the winner, though.
I actually love Judi Dench. I know a lot of people talk about this movie for some reason like it was a favorite. Don't. People go, Shakespeare in Love, I love that movie.
Nobody talks about that movie anymore.
Oh, well, maybe that's just maybe that's just something I've made up in my head. I don't know. So, yeah, Judi Dench. I like her.
I didn't know you were such a Dench head. I didn't know about your fandom. I didn't know anything about that. So, yeah, I'm happy to let her keep this award. I have, like I said, no beefs because I don't really have a horse in that race.
Yeah. So the next category, obviously, actor in a leading role. So this is
getting juicy.
This is the big one. And the nominees are Roberto Benigni, Life is Beautiful, Tom Hanks, Saving Private Ryan, Ian McKellen, Gods and Monsters, Nick Nolte, Affliction, Edward Norton, American History X. And the winner was Roberto Benigni, Life is Beautiful. So tell me what you think about that.
Roberto Benigni, Life is Beautiful. Speaking of movies nobody has mentioned, or people nobody has mentioned in 20 years. Never saw this movie. I mean, I looked at the box office. It did some fairly decent numbers in 1999, but you look at this category, you're like, what? What is going on here? You got some heavy hitters, and then the winner was Roberto Benigni. See, this seems to me like clearly one of those things. There was some sort of narrative fueling this in 1999 that with history, you look back and you're like, what is going on here? This makes no sense. Nobody's talking about Life is Beautiful. That movie's it's not even on the radar anymore. So how is this happening? What do you think? Am I crazy here?
No, I think, again, you're right on with that argument. I will say, if I were picking, I wouldn't be able to go on living with myself if I didn't always vote for Tom Hanks when he's nominated.
Always, every time.
Every time. That dude crushes every role he's ever played. And Saving Private Ryan, while it was a really hard movie to watch, that beginning scene is the one that will be burned into my brain for the rest of my existence. Tom, because, we're on a first-name basis.
I thought you would call him Tommy.
Tommy. Tommy. He was extraordinary in this picture, and that kind of makes me mad that he didn't win, So
I'll say this, too, Tom Hanks, here's another one of these narratives that fuels who wins. Maybe he should have won, but when they looked at it as a whole, they were probably like, oh, this guy just won for Philadelphia, and he just won for Forrest Gump. We're not giving it to him again. If this year's like standalone, maybe they vote for him. But because he just won twice in the 90s, they were probably like, we're going to give it to somebody else. It's the little politics that goes into these things from year to year,
Yeah. If a person deserves it, they deserve it, I don't care if they won 10 times. I mean, look at the Super Bowl this year. We've got a dude who's won 6 Super Bowls.
Yeah. Everybody's sick of it, but it keeps happening.
Yeah. And he's good. He's a good quarterback. You can't deny it. So if you're a good actor, why deny that actor that award?
And I think that's pretty important. That being said, you're completely wrong about Hanks. It should have gone to Edward Norton for American History X, undoubtedly. He crushed it in that movie. I think that was the point where he became like the star. Everybody thought, this guy's a really good actor. But that was the moment where that movie wasn't on anybody's radar. It wasn't a big movie, but his role in it pushed it forward and people paid attention to it. And, you know, it was that classic case, oh, he's young, he'll have many chances to win. Didn't have that many more chances to win. This was it. This is when he should have won.
Yeah, I mean, and I like Edward Norton. Don't get me wrong. Edward Norton, what happened to that dude, man?
I mean, he's still kicking around.
I don't know. But Tom, man, me and Tommy go way back. Way back.
No, it's Eddie. Eddie all the way.
I'm not going to knock it. I think Edward Norton's a great actor, but this is where we would part ways in the Academy. I'd be like, no.
Agree to disagree on that one.
So that takes us to the actress in a leading role, and the nominees were Gwyneth Paltrow, Shakespeare in Love, Kate Blanchett, Elizabeth, Fernanda Montenegro, Central Station, Meryl Streep, One True Thing, and Emily Watson, Hillary and Jackie. And the winner was Gwyneth Paltrow, Shakespeare in Love.
It is a new world.
And the crowd goes wild. Yeah, I can't really argue too much with that one. This was kind of Paltrow's moment where she hit what I would call movie stardom. You could argue it was downhill from here. It's kind of like an Edward Norton situation. She was really popular. You expected her to be one of these strong leading actresses for a long time. And she's had a good career, but not a maybe great career like you would have thought. But you can see why Paltrow won, and it still kind of makes sense, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is where my participation in the Academy would start to fall apart. You know, I said this at the beginning. The Oscars sort of elude me a little in the way that they choose, because I personally have seen a lot of movies over the years. A lot of movies. I saw a lot of the movies in 1998. Not a lot of the movies that are on these lists. And I had no desire to really see any of these movies. That's the thing. Like, granted, I'm still a pretty young guy at this point in time, but I would be that Academy member who based my decisions on other movies I saw that person in. Like, for example, Paltrow would be an ideal pick for me because I saw her in Hook as young Wendy in 1991, Higher Learning in 1995, which I thought was a good movie.
Wow, was she in Higher Learning?
Yeah, she was also in Seven in 95.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So
what's in the box? It was her.
Yeah. Okay, so then I'm looking at the other people on the list. Meryl Streep, which had so many movies that I saw her in. Deer Hunter in 78. I was only one at the time, by the way. Kramer and Kramer in 79. I actually remember these movies slightly, even though I was really young, and I probably saw them much later. Death Becomes Her in 92.
Underrated gem.
Yeah, I love that movie with Bruce Willis. When a woman learns of an immortality treatment, she sees it as a way to outdo her longtime rival. I think that might be on Wikipedia. Great movie. The River Wild, that was in 94. And then who could ever forget her in The Simpsons? In 94 is Bart Simpson's girlfriend, Jessica Lovejoy.
That's 94. Wow.
Yeah, so she had a lot of movies, that I could base my, not even seeing that Oscar movie, I'd be like, oh, it's between Meryl Streep and Gwyneth Paltrow.
I think she has like the most nominations of all time. They like nominate her for everything. I don't know what One True Thing is. Like, I can't even remember what that was.
Yeah.
So I have no recollection of what that movie actually is. But she's always good in everything. Does she deserve an Oscar nomination for everything? I don't know. Maybe she's that good.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we looked back, as we'll get to in a moment, when we look back on some of the other movies from 98, I could find a lot of actually pretty good potential people that could have been put in this category that weren't from the more popular for the people movies that the Oscars sometimes forgets.
Yeah, I agree. So the next category, directing. The directors from that year, nominees, Saving Private Ryan, Steven Spielberg, Life is Beautiful, Robert Benigni, Shakespeare in Love, John Madden, The Thin Red Line, Terrence Malick, and The Truman Show, Peter Weir. And the winner was Saving Private Ryan, Steven Spielberg. So what did you think of this one?
I think, thank God, they got this one right. This was a big one. I mean, the first 30 minutes alone of Saving Private Ryan, he deserves this award for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This was like a groundbreaking movie. You watch every other war battle scene that's been filmed since Saving Private Ryan, and they copy it.
I'm pretty sure they've used his actual footage and just clipped it into their own movies.
I think they're like, we're not going to do better, so let's just use it. But yeah, if they wouldn't have given this to him, even, we'll talk about the slight that happened in Best Picture in a minute, but even if they wouldn't have given this to him, I mean, that would have been just a complete travesty that would have shown what a sham these awards really are.
In my opinion, this movie is it's a phenomenal movie, and that beginning seared into my brain for all time.
I remember seeing it in the movie theater, and it just, I was almost like stunned. I think I took a date to it, which was kind of a poor decision. But it's,
it's a really bad decision.
It's just so intense, not a fun, lighthearted summer movie. Even though it came out in the summer, I think the highest grossing movie of 1998. So it was popular, it was high quality, critically acclaimed. It was one of those movies that checked all the boxes, and it should have easily swept these awards.
Yeah, not a great decision to take a date to this movie.
Also reminds me of a time my one friend rented with his girlfriend Deliverance.
Oh, God, yeah.
Not a great date movie.
Yeah. Then the final category on this, the Best Picture category, the nominees were Shakespeare in Love, Elizabeth, Life is Beautiful, Saving Private Ryan, and The Thin Red Line. And the winner was that year, Shakespeare in Love.
Boo! This is looked back on history not favorably. Considered by many one of the worst Oscar shams ever. It's also seen as when marketing campaigns took over the Oscars and who could win. Because to most people it was clear, like I mentioned, even looking back, it should have been clear as day Saving Private Ryan. But somehow there was this upset. Yeah. Looking back on the more important movie, the better movie, the more influential movie, I mean, it's clearly Saving Private Ryan, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind Saving Private Ryan should have definitely won this. They clearly missed the mark.
When you look back on that year, Saving Private Ryan should be in the record books as the best picture, but it's not. It shows you that something's a little wrong with the system.
Yeah. And as we'll see in a moment, I have no rights to judge the way other people judge movies. Because you were saying earlier, it's subjective. What I think is a great movie and what somebody else thinks is a great movie. I mean, there's going to be people who listen to the podcast who go, what is wrong with you? Maybe they love Shakespeare in Love, or maybe they, sorry, I mean, there's probably going to be those people, Shad. Or, maybe they love all of the movies in these lists, and then we start saying, well, this is how we would revise it. And they'd be like, are you guys idiots? Because it's subjective.
That's not to say Shakespeare in Love isn't a good or even great movie. I'm just talking about looking back in time, the movies that people talk about, the movies that are influential, the movies that have 20 years later. Saving Private Ryan is much higher up on that list. I'll also comment, this list of best pictures beyond Saving Private Ryan and maybe Shakespeare in Love, the other three really shrug-inducing. You're just like, well, okay.
Yeah, I agree. I can honestly say 98, I saw crap ton of the movies in the top 100. Really, almost none of the movies that were in this list. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's hard for me to even understand, right?
Yeah. I think this was a particular point in time where the popular and art movies were very separated in terms of award nominations.
But they still have that problem to some degree.
They do. I think a problem that they feel like they need to fix now or do something about, and I don't know if they can. Anyway, let's move on to the next part, which is kind of the more fun part, and this is, where did they blow it entirely? So now we're going to each go back, looking at the movies, and share 3 new nominees, edit history, and add some new nominations in the mix for movies that were released in 98.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
This is where it gets good.
Yeah, this is also where it shows through that I should never be invited to be on the Academy Award.
Shouldn't be a member of the Academy?
Yes, I should never be a member.
Well, I think that's why they are many, so they can have, like, a few bozos in there and their votes don't really matter.
They're like, no, we are not going to vote for The Bride of Chucky as Best Picture. It's just not going to happen.
Even though it was good,
Even-
we all liked The Bride of Chucky.
Even though it raked in $32 million, it's not going to make it on the list, okay?
All right, well, you want to throw out one of your new nominees first.
So let's just say, if I was going to pick the category of Best Actor, maybe Kevin Bacon in Wild Things. Remember that movie?
I actually love Wild Things, and I'll say I came very close. A lot of consideration on my list for Denise Richards in Wild Things.
Yes.
In the supporting actress category, I will say Kevin Bacon would be probably supporting actor for that movie. He had a smaller part in there.
Yeah, but I look at him as like every movie he's in, he's the best actor.
You can't. It's not based on that. It's based on the size of the part in the movie, like the role you play.
Well, again, I said I am not a great member of the Academy. I'm just gonna do. Well, so I also would say Samuel L. Jackson in The Negotiator.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's great. Or Brad Pitt in Meet Joe Black.
I never saw Meet Joe Black. Is Meet Joe Black a good movie? He's like an angel in this movie?
No, he is not an angel. Despite how most women feel about Brad Pitt, he is not an angel in this movie. But I will say also Tom Hanks in You've Got Mail, because it's Tom Hanks, damn it. And
double Hanks?
I'm just saying, I know it's 2 in 1 year, but I would put him in Best Actor in both of those movies in that category in the same year as a member of the Academy.
I like that one a little more because, you know, those kind of movies don't usually get nominated. And it'd be interesting to see serious Hanks versus funny Hanks.
And that would be a great way for the Academy to have fun with their nominations, right? Like pit the same actor against, like all 4 nominees were the same person. And then they were like, the actor could go and be like, you know, I'm in great company in this year's nominations, so I just want to thank everyone else.
It would be amazing if somebody got all the slots. What kind of year would that be? And you'd have to work really hard. It'd also be interesting, you know how when they like announce the nominees and they show everybody's face on screen, you know? It's like the same person.
It's Tom Hanks.
And he's like sitting there all nervous, wondering who's going to win.
Oh man, I would watch the Oscars for sure if they did stuff like that.
They don't have that sense of humor.
No, they don't. So what did you pick?
My first one is also in the Best Actor category, and to me, it's an easy pick and potential winner, and that's Jeff Bridges for The Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
Just because what a defining character, a defining role. You know, this movie at the time it came out was not as beloved as it is now. I remember even the first time I saw it, I was kind of like, I don't totally get this.
Yeah.
One of those things you had to watch 5 times, but now it's become so defining of that actor. Clearly his best role, the role he's going to be remembered for, even though he won an Oscar for something else, this is the one he should have won for. So I want to go back and give him at least the nomination for that.
I agree with you. It's a great pick. I would definitely say he is best known for this. I feel like I'm watching him.
Or that's at least who he became after that.
Yeah. I mean, so I agree with you there. Also, look, what is this, 20 years later? And for the Super Bowl commercial, Stella picked him.
Yeah, he revived the character.
Yeah. So clearly a good pick there.
That's a movie and a character that has stood the test of time.
So for Best Actress, I had Claire I think her last name is Forlani, Claire Forlani, in Meet Joe Black.
Wow, Joe Black racking up the noms.
Yeah, because she really had to work hard with that thing to make it believable. I think she's what made that movie work. Brad Pitt was kind of like, because his performance was dead.
You gave him an Oscar nomination for it?
Yeah, basically. Because I don't know if he was purposefully doing that or if that was totally by accident. But then, you know, she comes in and she says, okay, I'll work with whatever it is that I'm getting here from Brad Pitt, and I'm going to make this movie. Does it hold up? Whatever.
Did you like this movie? I don't have a full take on whether you like this movie or not.
I actually kind of like this movie.
Okay. Like I said, I never saw it. I had to look it up on Rotten Tomatoes. It's got a 51%, so pretty mixed, but the first excerpt from a review listed is, You just feel like you're dragging a set of dumbbells around with you while you're watching it.
That's a great review. I want that guy to be on the show. Can he be on MoMA?
We might have to get him, because that's good.
The other best actresses that I would pick, so I'm sorry, I couldn't pick just one in all these categories.
It's tough.
I would pick Posh, Sporty, Baby, or any other one of the Spice Girls, really, in Spice World. They weren't actresses. They were musicians. And I think that they really did something special with Spice World. And I say that jokingly.
It was real.
It was real. Also real, the sequel to I Know What You Did Last Summer. I Still Know What You Did Last Summer.
Clever title.
Yeah, and I think Jennifer Love Hewitt did a great job in that, standout in that movie.
I would say this is probably around the moment of peak Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Yeah, which goes back to our argument of, just because they're young doesn't mean you don't give them a nomination or an award, Best Actress. And then the last I had in my pick was Angela Bassett in How Stella Got Her Groove Back. Everybody knows that movie.
Surprised she didn't get a nomination for that. That's a movie that made her a star.
Yeah, and people still talk about that movie. There are still memes about that movie.
Yeah.
And that was before memes.
Most of your nominations questionable, but that's actually a pretty good one.
I didn't say I make good decisions. I just said I make decisions.
I make decisions.
What would you pick in the Best Actress category?
So let me throw into the Best Actress ring a really good one from one of the most popular, maybe one of my favorite movies of that year. There's Something About Mary, Cameron Diaz, who just made that movie. This was her moment when she excelled into superstardom. For those who don't remember, summer of '98, Something About Mary was a huge hit. Became one of, I think, the most successful comedies of all time. Also one of the funniest. I mean, it was killing people. It was a real crowd pleaser. People went back to it over and over. Great comedy, great summer movie. And Diaz just exuding star charisma in that one. She was a big reason that it worked. She was amazing here. You knew she was going to be a star. And I know the Academy doesn't like to give out nominations or awards for comedies very often, but this would have been well-deserved. I think she would have definitely been a good contender there. Better than a lot of, maybe some of the people in that category. So Cameron Diaz, There's Something About Mary.
I don't understand why they don't give out nominations very often for comedies, because I think comedies are what bring us all together.
It's hard to do comedy.
It is hard to do comedy, especially if you are a serious actor. So yeah, I like that movie.
To me, it stacks up with Best Picture. It's probably one of the 5 best movies of the year. It should have been in Best Picture.
So then my Best Picture, I've got some real ones in this one, by the way.
Okay. Meet Joe Black?
Not Meet Joe Black. It does not win for Best Picture.
It didn't make it. I thought it was going to sweep.
City of Angels. Do you remember that movie?
Okay. Never saw it, but I know of it. It's Nicolas Cage and Meg Ryan, right?
Yes. I would pick that simply because any movie that can make people believe Nicolas Cage is a fallen angel and that there's actual love between him and Meg Ryan, it deserves some accolades for that. It really does.
What an oddball pairing. I have trouble picturing those two having a conversation.
Exactly. And yet City of Angels pulls it off. You know what other movie made me believe in the impossible? It was Dr. Dolittle. I'd go as far as to say Eddie Murphy should have immediately received a Lifetime Achievement Award for his performance in this movie, mainly because he talks to animals and he makes us believe it.
I think of Dr. Dolittle as the poor man's, what was the other one he did? Where he was all the different characters.
Nutty Professor.
Yeah, the Nutty Professor. It's almost like he was doing the same thing.
Well, that was more over the top.
Dr. Dolittle is more of a serious drama.
It was, yeah. And it could have been under Best Drama, but we have to work with Best Picture in this case because it's the Oscars. And then lastly, I don't think we can forget Armageddon. Number 1, it made me believe in the end of the world. The star-studded cast in Armageddon, out of this world. It has Billy Bob Thornton in it and Liv Tyler, and the accompanying song from Aerosmith.
I mean, that was a huge movie that summer. That was like peak Bruce Willis, peak Ben Affleck, peak Liv Tyler, peak Aerosmith. Everybody working at their best to make that movie about a, drilling crew in space work, which it's a pretty fun movie, and it's a big movie. It's the Michael Bay-iest of the Michael Bay movies.
Yeah. I mean, it's number 2. Number 1, Saving Private Ryan that year.
Which is crazy that they both came out in the summer and Saving Private Ryan made more money than Armageddon, right?
By a hair, 15 million. When you're talking about 216 million and 201 million, it was close. That's not a lot.
They were both big hits, but I feel like that would never happen now.
No. So what about you, Best Picture? What do you got?
My Best Picture, for me, it's Out of Sight. Another kind of underseen, underperforming movie. I don't know. This would be a good episode to explore maybe the marketing, why this movie didn't do better. Came out in the summer, had a great director right before he became super popular in Steven Soderbergh, had Clooney right before he became a movie star, had J-Lo right before she became a big movie and music star, just getting ready to peak. They're in this movie, which is a really good crime movie based on Elmore Leonard novel, and it did okay, did a little bit of business, didn't get any award nominations or anything like that, but it's, to me, up there with Saving Private Ryan. Something About Mary is my favorite movie of that year. I would have given it Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress. I thought about trying to sneak J-Lo into Supporting Actress and give her the win, but Out of Sight is the movie I would have given the Best Picture nomination to.
I will say, Out of Sight, 57 on the list of top 100s of that year. You know what's right above that? How Stella Got Her Groove Back.
That was a really good pick. I'm considering that for Best Actress now.
See? I'm telling you. So in our revised winners, if you could pick anyone, Shad, you can use new nominees from the selections above or the ones that were actual nominees, or you could choose whoever you want. Obviously they have to be from movies that year, but anybody from that year, who would you pick?
So I'm going to go with Supporting Actor. I'm going to give it to Billy Bob Thornton, A Simple Plan. Supporting Actress, I'll stick with Judi Dench. Got to give something to the Dench because, for Dench heads like you.
Yeah.
Best Actor, I'm going to go with Jeff Bridges in The Big Lebowski.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Best Actress, I'm going to go with my pick of Cameron Diaz and There's Something About Mary. Best Director, we got to stick with Steven Spielberg for Saving Private Ryan. And Best Picture, I think it's going to be Out of Sight. No, it's not. It's got to be Saving Private Ryan. That's the movie that holds up to history. It's Saving Private Ryan, people.
I like your list. I like your list a lot. You stayed pretty conservative.
Well, I want it to be real. I want it to be real, man.
My list isn't quite as Oscar-worthy as yours, I think. Here is my list. Supporting actor, I'd go with Gene Hackman in Enemy of the State.
I like that pick. Enemy of the State, interesting movie. Haven't seen it in a while, but Hackman, always good.
Gene Hackman in that movie, excellent. Supporting actress, Liv Tyler in Armageddon. Actor, Robin Williams, Patch Adams.
Boo.
I think Robin Williams did a great job in this movie.
When he healed people with comedy.
Yes. He always had a really great way of playing a serious role for a guy who got his start in comedy.
I agree, Robin Williams should have won more Oscars, but not for this movie.
You didn't like Patch Adams. You didn't like it.
No. I can't back Patchy. Go ahead. Who you got for actress?
I can't back Patchy. So actress, I've got Meg Ryan, City of Angels. I think she did a great job in that movie. Again, one, making us believe that she could possibly love Nicolas Cage.
He's unlovable.
He's kind of unlovable. But beyond that, she did have some really great moments in this movie.
Quick comment, Meg Ryan, underrated. I don't know if she's ever won or been nominated for an Oscar, but throughout the 90s, she had a good run there. Maybe a little forgotten about how good she was. I really like Meg Ryan.
Yeah, I kind of miss Meg Ryan, to be honest with you. And then Best Director, I went with Frank Carracci, I think, or Frank Carrassi. And that is for directing The Waterboy.
Taken away from Spielberg and giving it to The Waterboy, huh?
Yeah.
Something a little different. Also, potential supporting actress nominees, Kathy Bates and Vicky Valancourt.
Yes, I thought about Kathy Bates, as a matter of fact. But
you could swap her out if she got a nomination for that other movie. You could put her in there for The Waterboy instead, and I'm fine with that.
Look, Mama, it's the devil. And then Best Picture, Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, you don't want to mess that one up.
Fine, I'll give it to Saving Private Ryan. Oh, that's a real movie, and the Oscars would be okay with that. So that's my list.
Underrated good stuff.
Yeah.
So, well, there you have it. Some nice, fun to revisit 99 and some great revisionist history for you as we go through and give you some alternative universe Oscar winners from 1999.
And that's it for this episode of Movies and Marketing. Until next time, let's fade to black.
I'll be back.
He's not coming back.